Well, welcome to our next study in the book of Mark. And we're still in chapter 13, and today we're going to go over verses 14 to 23. Now, if you recall from previous lessons, we're still on the Mount of Olives, where Jesus and his disciples went after they left the temple in Jerusalem. They'd walked up to the Mount of Olives, and the question was raised to Jesus by the disciples, what will be the sign of the times? When will these things be? And what will be the sign that all these things will be fulfilled? All the things that Jesus had spoken to the disciples about, and it also mentioned to the Pharisees, to the Sadducees, and to the scribes. So the disciples had sat down with Jesus and said, when will these things come about? So this was the cause of Jesus entering into this long answer, the longest of any answer that he gave in the Bible, and is now known as the Olivet Discourse. And Jesus went into the things that were going to happen towards the latter days. And if you remember from last week, he went into a lot of things that would happen, especially about people being deceived, about things happening, wars and rumors of wars, earthquakes, signs in the skies, natural disasters, plagues, pestilences, earthquakes, other things that were going to happen, all apparently in a cumulative effect, becoming more severe and more frequent as the time of the end approached. And then he said, these are the beginnings of sorrows. But he warned his disciples, and he warned us, to be careful not to be deceived, not to be misled by false prophets, false teachers, false scribes. In fact, he talks about deception 3 times in this small discourse. One about being deceived by false people who say they were the Christ in his place, by false Christs and false messiahs. And then not to be deceived by false prophets and false priests. And then he calls, in this section, he says, even the elect will be deceived or can be deceived. So this is not something which is very trivial. This is something which is serious for everyone, even those who feel they have a strong faith and a strong relationship with Christ. So he talks about families being at odds with each other. And you can see this happening even today, where people who follow Christ are at odds with the rest of the family who don't. Or people who follow Christ are at odds with other religions who don't. And he says brother will be against brother, father against their children, parents against their children, children against their parents. He says, he told the disciples, you will be hated by all for my name's sake. Because he's saying there's going to be a great falling away. There's going to be a great apostasy which is going to occur, and people are going to leave the Christian religion for what seems to be different and better offered elsewhere. And you can see this even today, where people are often leaving Christianity because they tend to think that other religions offer more, other relationships offer more, and most of this is because those other aspects tend to allow people to do what they want to do more than Christianity tells them that they should do. So now it gets down into this section we're in today, and it says, so when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing where it ought not. This was something which Daniel did speak of back in chapter 9 of his book. In Daniel it says, starting at verse 26, and after the 62 weeks, this has to do with Daniel's prophecy, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself, and the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end of it shall be with the flood, until the end of the war desolations are determined. He talks this way about the part of the tribulation. And then in verse 27 he says, then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. This is the Antichrist, who will make a covenant with the nation for 1 week, saying that peace is at hand. But in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering, and on the wind of abominations shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation which he determined is poured out on the desolate. The abomination of desolation was really a abomination which occurred in the temple. And there was a pagan king called Antiochus, who did this when he conquered Jerusalem and actually sacrificed pagan animals on the altar and set up a monument to Zeus inside the Jewish temple. This was an abomination. And it is said when the Antichrist comes, he will also set up something in the temple on the Holy Mount, which will be an abomination. And there's another religion whose end eschatology points to pigs being sacrificed on an altar and of abominations taking place in what would then be the Jewish temple. Now, it's hard to say whether all of this is just done in words that relate to what the people knew at the time, and therefore are somewhat of an allegory as to what situation it really is at the present time or not. But this abomination means there will be something set up which is totally anathema to God and to Christ before the end times come. And when you see the abomination of desolation, let the reader understand, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not go down into the house, nor enter to take anything out of his house. And let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days, and pray that your flight may not be in winter. What he's saying is something's going to happen. There's going to be an increasing accumulation of bad events, spoken of in the first part of the prophecy, where he talks about wars and rumors of wars and hurricanes and floods and pestilences, etc. That these events and worse events will increase both in number and frequency and in severity. And this goes along with the book of Revelation, which talks about the 7 trumpets, the 7 seals, the 7 bowls. And as each one goes into the next, the problems become more severe and more frequent. And Jesus is really saying there's going to be a time at the end where things are going to become so severe, so destructive, so bad, that people who will flee as fast as they can from the cities, from where they are, to mountains, to wherever they think they can find refuge. They won't have time to collect belongings. They won't have time to collect their material possessions. This is going to be a time of great calamity, of great severity, of great disaster, such as he says the world has not seen before or ever will since. It says, for in those days there will be tribulation, such as not been seen since the beginning of the creation which God created until this time, nor ever shall be. God is talking about his judgment, his wrath, his vengeance upon the earth, because we have followed Satan since the beginning of creation. And we have not allowed ourselves to follow God. We have continually gone away from his word, his instruction, his commandments. And this has been building up because of that. And you can see the world around us is getting worse and worse and worse all the time. So this is building up, and Jesus is saying it's going to get even worse than this until the end comes. It will be worse to a degree that has never been seen before, and probably will never be seen again. And it says, unless the Lord has shortened those days, no flesh would be saved, but for the elect's sake, whom he chose, he shortened the days. For those people who really follow Christ, and it says before, he who endures to the end shall be saved. For those people, there will be a shortening of time on this earth, and they will be taken out and saved from the tribulation and the problems and the corruption and the disasters which are occurring in the world. It's a symbol of God's vengeance on the world, accumulating to a point where the world as we know it will no longer exist. Then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or look, he is there, do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will rise and show signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. There will be many people stating to be the Messiah. And the second best religion, greatest religion on earth, have a false Messiah coming who is going to say this very same thing, that Christ is a prophet only, and that he is only going to follow the God of that religion. So don't be deceived. People are being deceived every day and taken away from the true religion, because we have both the evidence and the history and the book of evidence that shows that this is the true way. False Christs and false prophets will rise and show signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. But take heed. I have told you these things beforehand. He is telling us what's going to happen. He is telling us what will occur so that we can be prepared. There is a little more elucidation of this in Thessalonians chapter 2. And it says, starting at verse 3, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first. And as we can see around us, especially in the Western world, the falling away is occurring now. Unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So he's going to set himself up, this false Messiah, in the temple area. There's no temple there now, and there may be one built, who knows, but there's no temple there at the moment. But he set himself in the temple area as God, mimicking Jesus. He will set himself up as God. He will be the abomination of desolation. Do you not remember that when I was still with you, I told you these things? This is the discourse that we're talking about right now. The Olivet Discourse, the end of it, talking about the tribulation. And now you know what is restraining, that he may be revealed in his own time. For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. Only he who now restrains, the Holy Spirit, only he who now restrains will do so until he is taken out of the way, which will happen after the church is raptured. When he is taken out of the way, and then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord will consume with the breath of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming. This will all be just before Christ himself returns. Now, is Christ coming back the second time? The Bible certainly indicates that he is. There are many people who don't believe any of this. This is all a story. The people who want to believe in heaven, who want to believe in the good things that Jesus talks about, want to believe in His grace and in His mercy, do so because the Bible tells them that. But when you talk about God's wrath and God's judgments and God's end time coming, then they don't want to believe that because this is contrary to what they are often taught or what they themselves want to believe. Does a God of mercy and of love and of grace do all this or allow all this to happen? Well, we are told it's going to happen. And if you look at the world around us right now, it is not hard to see that the world seems to be building up to this sort of a situation, where even now there are men who claim to be almost godlike, who can do whatever they want, whenever they want, to whomever they want, in whatever way they want. That they do everything for their own greed and for their own avarice. They don't do it for anyone else. They want everything for themselves, and they think that they can act as God acts, doing whatever they wish. And this is the type of time that we are in. This is the type of time which Christ says will precede the Great Tribulation. So if you look around us, you can see how this is all coming to fruition. The increasing natural disasters, the increasing natural problems, the increasing wars and rumors of wars, the greater complexity, the greater fierceness of war, the falling away from the church, the falling away from the true faith. All these things have come and are in the process of happening right now. And when Christ says these things start happening, be aware. Because at a time you least expect, the Great Tribulation will be upon us and Christ will be returning. But not yet. So if someone says right now that the Christ is here, or that Christ has come, or that Christ is there, then don't be deceived, because this is a falseness. As it says, here is Christ. Oh look, he is there. Do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will rise and show signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. Take heed. I have told you all things beforehand. So Christ is talking about the Great Tribulation. He's talking about the days of revelation, the days when He will be coming back a second time. And this is what we talk about next week as we end this chapter, or get further on in this chapter, with the coming of the Son of Man. So thanks for watching today. I hope to see you again next week. Bye for now.